Hello and welcome. This video is a must-see for anyone learning to sew. Recently, I had a live stream where I invited input from our Facebook group on what a beginner needs to know before they start. And I shared my top 10 things as well. What resulted is a fantastic resource. So I took these tips and feedback, removed the off-topic chit-chat, and created a video that will live on my channel as a resource for beginners, as well as those just wanting to improve. So with that, here are the tips. If you find this info worthy, please give this video a thumbs up. Also, maybe a share, and don't forget to subscribe. God bless. Here's the video. Thanks for joining. I hope everything's good for you today. I think this should be some really good discussion if we can get people to share, because if there's a beginner, if they watch this video, they're going to get a lot of good tips if everybody shares. What are the things that you wish you would have known before you ever started sewing? I'm going to go ahead and jump in because I think this could be some good discussion. All right, so the very first tip that I thought of was that not all fabrics are beginner friendly. And I say that because I did the dumb thing. I started with knits. I've been sewing. I should have actually put those pictures up. They used to be on my little intro, but I actually started sewing when I was about 3, believe it or not. But seriously, sewing for myself, I was in junior high. And my mom was taking stretch and sew, so she dragged me along. And I started with knits and sewing garments for myself, which may or may not have been a good idea, because I did learn how to work with knits, and I am like really comfortable, always have been with knits. But I didn't really learn the woven basics of easing and all that stuff until much later. Might be a good thing to start off with, like quilting cotton, but don't be afraid to do t-shirts, but maybe do some kind of a small project with crafting with quilting cotton first. Might be a really good tip, I would say. Just watch out what fabrics you're using and make sure if it's something, if it is a knit or a woven, make sure you know the difference and how to handle a knit. If you start with a knit, it was fine for me because my mom was dragging me to stretch and sew, and I thought all fabrics were that way. I was dumb. I didn't know. And so when I went to the wovens, I had a lot to learn, but I did. But I was in my teens before I really figured that out. I think that a lot of people just think fabrics are fabrics, and that's not really how it is. Just one tip that I had. Please just chime in if you have a tip, because I'm just going to go through my list, and if somebody interrupts me, I'll put theirs up, okay? The next one I had was that cutting is just as important as sewing, if not more. And when you're, man, I learned this the hard way too. So when you're cutting, you fold fabric and you cut something on a fold, and maybe some piece of this underside was gone, and you cut your piece out and there's a big hunk out of the bodice that you were cutting out. Be careful when you're cutting not to do stuff like that. You'll believe it or not, I still do stuff like that sometimes. I try to be careful. It does happen because I'm always trying to squeeze the last little bit of fabric, but cutting is so important and as accurate as you can be, because, and quilters are the best at this, and I did not start out a quilter, but those of you that have been quilters first have an edge, because you know that a 1/4 of an inch makes a big difference. An 1/8 of an inch makes a big difference. So be really careful, because if you have a 1/4 of an inch and you multiply that times 2 seams, that's an inch that you're the best case scenario would be adding. In some cases it could be taking out, and you could end up with something too large or too small. So be very careful when you're cutting. Also be careful that there's not something already cut out of the piece that's underneath, because you can think it's big enough and then you do it and then, oh no, that just happened to me. So I'm bringing that up. It's not even a beginner question, but it happens to all of us. Am I alone? I hope somebody else. It's yes. Dot says take time to do a muslin before, let me you cut that nice fabric. Amen to that, Dot. All right, the next one is that pattern sizes are different. So a lot of people start sewing and they go and they look at the McCalls and then Simplicity, and it looks like 16, 18, 20, 8, 10, 12. It looks just like the sizes in the store, and they're not the same. And then people get really discouraged if they usually wear a 12 and they measure a 16 in some parts of the pattern. Buy the 16 because pattern sizes are different. Don't be depressed because the pattern sizes seem so big. And I've never been on the other side of that, so maybe there's another story if you get too small for some of them too. But definitely don't compare the sizes between the store and patterns. Go by not only the measurements on the envelope or the pattern, but also the finished measurements. And on a printed pattern like from McCall's Simplicity, the Big Four, usually if it's not on the envelope, it will be on the inside. When you open the tissue paper, there'll be a section where it has the finished measurements. Okay, got a couple of tips up. He says, do not be discouraged. Even mistakes are an opportunity to learn and grow. That's absolutely correct. Absolutely right. And Kelly says, accuracy is important, but can't use rulers for most things. Oh, but she can't use rulers for most things. Kelly says, I can draw using rulers and still my cutting will be less than great. It's hard, I know. Do you use a rotary cutter? Might help. Sometimes scissors can get off a little bit because you're having to lift the fabric up to cut. That's one tip I would say, to use a rotary cutter. Use pattern weights instead of pins because that will help you push everything down nice and tight and make it more accurate when you cut. That's the best tips I can give you for knowing what I know about your situation. But I would love for you to hop in the Facebook group and let us help you with that, because that maybe is something that it might be something that someone else has struggled with and figured out. If you're watching and you have, chime in here for Kelly. When I was a teenager, I just would come home crying from the fabric store because of the size pattern I had to buy. Ouch. You just don't beat yourself up because it's not the same. Dot says, when the clothes fit, you look so good. Nobody's tracking what size you make. I know. When you make it, girlfriend, it's whatever size you say it is. And you could label it a small and say, hey, it's small for me. It's just measure yourself and buy the right size. That's a huge, just get over that hump and know that everybody is making a size bigger than what they buy at the store. At least one size bigger. All right, the next one I have is that pressing is magic. Don't pitch something because it's puckered right after you sew it, or has some kind of a, even won't ease or whatever. Press it. Press the you-know-what out of it. And 9 times out of 10, the iron will fix stuff. It's amazing. It truly is amazing what the iron can do. So if you don't have a good steam iron, it's time to go get one. So just, Rowenta is the brand I like, but there's tons of great brands out there. Definitely buy a good steam iron and don't skimp. Press those seams open or to the side if you serged them, whatever, just press. All right, this is Dot Z. And she's the one from Western Pennsylvania who's with us, and she actually did send me in a video with a question. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and I hope everybody has some great answers for her.
Hi, Kim and all our friends from Dorothy's Daughter. Kim asked for some videos for things to help with, and my first one is, how the heck do I organize all these PDF patterns? I've been working for a couple of years now on learning how to use PDF patterns. A lot of them are Love Notions, but I have them put together on these skirt hanger or pant hanger hooks. But I can't find, if I have one that I know I already printed, I can't find them. So I'm looking for some ideas on how to organize these PDF patterns. Thanks. See you later.
I always kept mine folded in like big manila envelopes, and I filed them by designer in a file cabinet. However, I have not added to that file cabinet at all because I use my projector almost 100% of the time now. It saves a lot of paper and space. So if you do use a projector, that is fantastic. If not, then for me the file cabinet worked, but maybe some of you have better things. I also have 6 file cabinets in my garage full of patterns, but some of those are really old, and some of those are actually vintage ones that I purchased from somebody because I wanted to have the vintage patterns, because they're going to be hard to find now. All right, let's see. Hi, Patricia's here from Missouri. Virginia says pressing is great, but know your fabric. Oh, absolutely. Yes, you test it always on a scrap. Even if you think you know your fabric and that it'll be okay, test a scrap so that you know that it's not going to melt on your iron. And you can always use a pressing cloth if you're not sure. They sell Teflon sheets in the craft store that I use for my Cricut. And sorry for the noise. Bobbin is dragging a frisbee around the sidewalk. Anyway, they sell Teflon sheets. Those are great to keep if you think it's something that's going to stick. And you can also use just a regular bath towel works to just not have contact with the fabric. Sometimes if I'm iffy about something, that's what I'll do. I'll get like a bath towel, even a wet bath towel, so that you're still having steam but you're not putting the heat directly on the fabric. Okay. What about the PDF patterns? Virginia says manila envelopes, you can mark on the envelope as to what the pattern is. Yeah, that's exactly what I did. And then in my file cabinets, I have Love Notions all in one place, Patterns for Pirates all in one place, Made for Mermaids, and so on. So that's what I do. I'm sure there's 1,000 ways. The way that I think I'm very intrigued by the way you had them hanging like that. I always thought that would be a great idea, but I can see where that would build up really fast and you would lose your closet space. Yeah, I'd love to hear some more ideas on that, but the best way to solve it is to get a projector. And I hope that I'm going to be doing a series, an update. I have a series, but I'm going to do an updated one now that I've actually used it for quite a few years now, and try and help you if you want to delve into projectors. All right, my next one, let me find it now where I was, because all right. The next one is sewing machines need TLC, but they're not to blame for as much as you think. So I remember my mom had this fancy Singer Futura, something with this built-in cabinet, and the thing flips up, and that was when free arms were just new and all that stuff, and it could probably do the dishes and everything. But I hated it. I hated that machine with every fiber of my being because it always ate my fabric. And now knowing what I know, I think if I had changed the needle, if I had looked at what was going on under the bobbin, I know all these things now, but I didn't then. So there's a lot of things you can check before you blame the machine. You can make sure there's no dust in the bobbin case, pull the bobbin out and look, and you can use a little, very gentle little vacuum, which they sell. I can give you a link on Amazon. And there's also brushes that you can use, and you can get that lint out of there. The feed dogs could have lint built up on them. I had that happen once. And also your needle can get bent or nicked so easily. So definitely don't blame the machine the first thing. about patterns, Dot says that she used to inventory them so she would know what's there. Yeah, I can see where that could get as you just keep sewing. It's hard to keep that up. She says, Lori says, I keep my printed patterns folded up in Ziploc bags and store the bags in magazine holders. That's a really good idea, one I haven't heard yet. Dot said she loves some more content on projector patterns. And Rhonda said she uses large envelopes that she gets from Amazon, and she'll post pictures in the Facebook group. Awesome, that'd be great. And a spreadsheet that I know my patterns are there. What a great idea. I do have a spreadsheet of my patterns, but I keep track of them more by Google Drive than by the actual printing. But a lot of the old ones I've had to go back and re-download the projector files because once upon a time I didn't think I would ever use them. All right, the next one is measure carefully, and this kind of goes, we talked about this with cutting, but don't fudge your measurements on anything. If it's a 1/4 of an inch seam, sew a 1/4 of an inch seam. If it's 3/8, sew 3/8, not half, not 5, not half. Don't eyeball it unless you really know what you're doing. Especially if it's it's supposed to be a small measurement. It really makes a difference. And there again, the quilters have an edge because they are used to working with 1/4 inches and having things line up exactly. And when you start with knits, that's not your focus because things stretch. So I had to back up and relearn some things when I was in my early 20s and started sewing for my children, and it wasn't knits anymore. I had to back up and learn to measure better because I made some drastic mistakes. We should have a video just of mistakes. I could tell you about the time I was in a wedding and I was really late getting my dress done. Everybody made their own dress, and I was like a couple days before, and I thought I was done, and I put it on, and I had one arm going up like this. So yeah, we all make mistakes. My husband, when we were dating, I made him remember when safari jackets were in style back in the 70s? I made him one, and it was a surprise, and he put it on, and he just chuckled, and I said, what? And he goes, men don't put their stuff right over left, they put it left over. I had no idea. So yeah, those are the kind of mistakes that we laugh at. Dot says her mother gave her touch and sew. That's what my mom's was, and she hated it. She needed lessons on how to thread it. I constantly jammed it up with bird nests. She gave it away. Mom was disappointed. That's exactly what happened to me, Dot. It was terrible. And it was so bad that when I was 16, I saved my babysitting money, and I went to Sears, and I bought a Kenmore. And honestly, I love that machine. I wish I still had it sometimes because it's a relic, but that was my first machine that I absolutely loved. I bought every penny. I put it on layaway, and it took me like 3 months to save up my babysitting money to get it. Here's somebody who wants to say hello. Come here. Oh, she's getting heavy. Here we go. Say hey. Can you say hey? This is my baby girl. Bobbing in the flesh. Whoa. Not animated. She hit the don't forget to subscribe button, so I guess we'll have to go back to that, huh? Say hi. Say hi. Lori says, I have a vintage Kenmore. It belonged in my husband's belonged to your husband's grandmother. They're wonderful. They were wonderful machines. I don't know why they stopped making them. All right. Say hey. Are you sleepy? Are you sleepy, girl? Her chin gets dirty because she gets in my mulch out here. All right, I'm going to put you down because you're heavy. She must have just hit the next button. That's don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I guess Bobbin wants you to, so there you go. You have another reason to do it other than the fact that I would like to get to 50K by the end of the year. So we'll see if that happens. But we're at about 31,300 or so. So we might do it. You never know. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and do that. All right. The next tip is that pins and clips are not optional. They're a necessity. Some people think, "Oh, I don't need to pin this. I can just," and then you get to the end and they're like off by this much. And there's been so many times when I found something that was off by that much and I thought, "Oh, this is a lost cause." That's not really true, because sometimes you take it apart and maybe it's the wrong side, or sometimes pieces look like they should be this side when they're really this side. You can get confused when you're putting things together, or sometimes you just are pulling the fabric a little bit more than you think. You can use a walking foot, which you guys all know I hate, but I have the AccuFeed system on the Janome, and that foot is great, and it feeds exactly the same, the bottom and the top, and you can still see what you're doing. Because with walking foot, I feel like I can't see what I'm doing. But there's roller feet and all kinds of things. But good general rule, if you've got two pieces of fabric and one is a little longer than the other that you have to ease, put the longest one on the bottom, because the top feed dogs are going to pull and the bottom doesn't. So that helps. It sometimes will make a big difference. Okay, Virginia says Kenmore was her first machine and she still uses it. Yay! I love it. I loved mine so much. And I don't even know what happened to it. I think maybe my mom sold it in a garage sale or when after I moved away. I don't know. I took it to Texas with me. Maybe I sold it and used the money to buy mine. Because I bought, when I was in Texas, I bought one of the first computerized Viking machines, and it was amazing. But it got a power surge in my house, and it had to be scrapped. It was just the saddest thing in the world. But Rhonda says she's still using her 20-year-old Kenmore. That's awesome. Man, they were good machines. I don't know, probably one of the big companies probably made it. I bet it was Janome, because they make Elna. I bet it was Janome. I'll have to investigate that. But anyway, that's just a tip. That was a little rabbit trail there, but use your pins and clips. Next thing is, sewing is not fast food. So definitely don't try to rush. If it's not a fast project, don't make it one. If you're sewing a t-shirt, and you can get it done in the evening maybe, but don't try to sew something really complicated in a hurry. Do a slow project every now and then. Do it an hour or two and then put it down. Because I'll tell you, if you try to rush those things that are complicated, it can wreck you. It can just wreck you. Had a little example of that when I was doing those mermaid costumes this year, trying to get those done under the gun, and it was hard. I got them done and they looked beautiful, but my mental health was definitely affected by trying to get those done, because it was like all consuming. Okay, let's see. Sears made it, Kim. Yeah, you're probably right, Patricia. But I think Whirlpool made their washers, and so there's probably a big company that made their machines. I don't know, maybe not. Sign up to the Facebook group if you're not on there. I think most of you are, but if you're not on the Facebook group yet, go ahead and just go to Dorothy's Daughter Community and sign up. You're automatically approved when you join, as long as you answer those questions. And we would love to have you, because there's so many people that help on there. Usually I'll see a question, I might see it right away and I might not, and then I'll see it and I'll go to answer it, and 10 people have already given them the best answer. So that is definitely something that you should do. All right, now for number 10. Focus on progress, not perfection. So only thing you have to be is better than your last project. Don't think that everything's going to be perfect, because it's not. And sometimes the things you think that were terribly not perfect end up being the favorite things that you wear. And that has happened to me where I thought, man, this jacket is just, I remember having fit versions of patterns that we've tested that I ended up loving the fit version more than the final. That's happened. So just take your time and do your best, but don't worry about perfect, because I don't think I've ever sewn anything that was 100% perfect. There's a flaw in everything. I guess the Amish women used to say that they would put a mistake in their quilts on purpose because only God is perfect, which there's some truth to that. That's what I'm going to tell myself anyway when I mess up, because everybody does. I don't care who you are. You can ask any one of the people on YouTube if they still mess up, and if they don't say yes, they're lying, because we all do. So I know I do. So anyway, that's what I've got. So neither is seam ripping. You're right. Seam ripping is not a bad thing. Your seam ripper is really your friend. You should never be afraid to rip it out. I do have a tip though. If it's getting late and you sew something wrong that you have to rip out and you just want to go to bed, take the time and do the ripping first and then go to bed, because it will be so much better to start the next day if everything has been ripped. Dot says she loves her grandmother's quilts that have mistakes. She wasn't about to waste time ripping out and redoing the piecing. Good for her. I don't blame her. Yeah, it especially years ago when they sewed because they had to. They didn't worry that there was mistakes in things. It was just all right. Lori's got a great tip. Her tip is to thread your machine likes and only use that. I'm not sure. Thread your machine with thread that you like, I'm thinking, is what you're saying, and only use that. Yeah, that's a really good tip, because you will be frustrated if you use bad thread. Agreed. Okay, here's we go. Ken Moore's sewing machines had several manufacturers throughout the years. The models starting with 158 were made by Jaguar. The later 356 models were made by Janome. I bet you I had a Janome, because that's what I love. I love my Janomes so much. I have 3 Janomes, and I have 2 baby locks and a Juki. My 2 baby locks are my embroidery machine and my cover stitch, my new cover stitch. I haven't had it very long. I got the Euphoria, which I'm still learning to use everything on it. It's a beast of a machine. It's really great. And my Juki is my serger. I love them all, but my Janomes never, ever fail me, and they're not hard to use. So I always suggest Janome for anybody who's looking for at least for a first-time machine. Baby locks, I would, but man, for a first-time machine, they're just too pricey for most people, especially if you're not sure if it's a hobby you're going to stick with. Janome, at least you can get down in the price range a little bit. So Lori says her machine only likes one brand of thread. Oh, I gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. A lot of people say their machines are like that. I pretty much use Dual Duty Plus for garment sewing. I like that it's polyester and that it will stretch a little bit and it won't shrink. So that's why I like that. Or the Gutermann version of that. Either one of those I use generally. Unless it's a specialty thing that I'm doing, then I might be using top stitch thread or something like that. Embroidery thread. I like on Amazon, they sell this brand called New Brothreed. And actually Dot, she's on here. Thank you. She introduced me to that. And it is wonderful thread. And it's about half the price of the real expensive thread. I really recommend that thread highly for embroidery. Joey. I love New Brothreed. Yeah, they do make nice. I haven't tried their regular thread, like polyester thread, but I have tried the embroidery thread, and I love it. I would imagine it's all pretty good. it all comes packaged really nice, and it just seems like a really good quality product to me. You can tell a lot from packaging of things, I think. If they take the time to package something really well, then it's cared about, and they've probably put their heart into making it a little bit. Join the Facebook group if you're not a part of it, because there's so many wonderful women there, people there. I think we have a couple men that will just help you so much. The spirit of everyone is just helpful. We don't allow politics or arguments or any of that ugly stuff, and we haven't had any that I know of. So join the Facebook group, and just for the love of sewing, that's what we're about. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead and click that little subscribe button and click that bell, and then you'll get a notification when I go live then, so you won't miss it if you are available. So anyway, I was just looking to see if anybody else had posted anything before I say the final goodbye, and I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless you guys.